Hi Patrick,
Hey mate,
how are you?
good, how are you?
I'm pretty good, mate. I'm pretty good. I've been pumped for this for a while, I think.
I've been watching the progress,
You've been watching the progress?
looks good, I'm
loving
excited.
it. I'm loving it. Alright. So tell me, Pat, one of your topics that you've wanted to breach on is men's mental health.
Yep.
Right? So where does that start for you? Where does that start for you as in like, why is it so important? What's it doing for you? Like why is this your topic today? Why is this your first topic?
I'd like to say that it kind of, reflects on a lot of my, let's say, role models growing up. I mean, being that I had role models from older generations and the way they were raised to the way men were raised these days and the new generations, it's got a dramatic sort of change to it. And back then, a teaspoon of cement is sort of where you were headed if you were, you had an issue or, something was going wrong, you weren't feeling well, like it was almost like a disease. As to where these days, I think it's getting better, but I just don't think quite as many men have reached out because of the older generation and the way they raised us. Coming from someone who suffers from severe depression and anxiety, PTSD, from traumatic experiences as a kid, that doesn't just end when you get to becoming a man and to an adulthood. It definitely, it probably affects you more now as an adult than it would when you were, younger. So you have a better understanding, which is why I think it sort of affects us more as we get older. And I've had a lot of friends and family members that have suffered from, mental health their entire life, and after going through some traumatic stuff, we still don't feel like we have the right to speak out and talk about it. And I've lost a lot of friends to suicide and to drug addictions because they have no coping mechanisms.
Because they don't know who to go to for that mental health. I mean, that's the attitude, right? Is so that when they don't know who to turn to, they're going to turn to a substance, and I've been there myself, and I understand that completely from their point of view, that it's scary talking to people, it's scary opening up that I feel shit, that I'm not doing okay, that I need help, and so I get that part of it.
It's being not okay is okay to feel, in a sense, because I don't know how to put it, you feel this sense of confinement and at the same time this desperation of needing to scream out and get a hold of someone, but we weren't taught how to do that when we were younger.
It's nearly like walking around and it's just like you want to scream and yell and you want to, shake, and it's like all you're doing is walking around just to your next goal, Well, how do you deal with it? Right? You've got all these things. Do you reach out to a friend or do you reach out to family? Do you try to make your family actually change with that attitude?
So, I come from a big family, and I have a lot of brothers, and I've got 2 sisters, and there is only one of my siblings that has actually reached out and made me feel like it's okay to talk about things and express what's going on in my life. And even for my other siblings that are suffering from all kinds of different mental health, they don't feel like they can talk about it. They almost look at it as weak. And it's sad. Not in the sense of, I'm judging them. It's just sad that they don't feel comfortable enough to be able to reach out and, communicate as such. And I think it's really bad, because I've nearly lost myself to struggles of, mental health feeling completely and utterly alone, confined in a big area with lots of people. You almost come to this setting where, as big as the room is and as many people as there, you focus on what's wrong and what isn't right. So you focus on the negatives rather than the positives. So if you have a flashback, or if you see someone, it could be as simple as someone walking by and having a look at you, and that look reminds you of a look you got when you were a kid.
Yeah,
And
yeah, like a teacher gave that to you or something, and it takes you right back. Takes you right back, and all of a sudden you think of the look that person gave you. But not only that, that piece of shit teacher that you fucking, yeah, you know, you're holding that memory, you know.
Yeah.
And like from our experience, right, I've called you up asking for help. You know, I've got my own troubles, and I've called you up a few times, you know, fucking distraught. Was that scary? You know, is that something like when your friends or something choose to do that, right? It's like, for me, I still find it scary when someone calls me and they want my advice, and it's like, man, I'm just trying to get by, eh? You know, and it's quite a scary thing, I think. It's because these people, you know, essentially me at that time, I'm calling you up, fucking just looking for a lifesaver, you know, and that's what everybody, you know, people are afraid to save their life, I think. So, like, how is it scary for you?
I've been on both sides. So I've been on the side where I've had my closest friends, such as you and others, call me in a desperate time of needing support and, you know, just someone to listen, someone to just hear what's going on and not judge you. I think that's a lot of what a lot of people hide from, is because they're too afraid they're going to be judged. They're going to be put into a corner or something along those lines where they feel that they can't express. And I've called people multiple times in states where I was intoxicated,
Yep.
under the influence, and not having the best of thoughts. I had just had a lot of significant things happen in my life in such a short amount of time that I wasn't able to cope. I could take hit after hit in spaces of periods, if that makes sense. I took about 12 significant blows in 1 month, and it was almost like every day I was getting a bit of like more and more bad news. Like, I had my life torn apart. I lost everything. I had my kids taken away from me. I had my house taken away from me. I had my family taken away from me. And you don't know what pain is until you can't just, you know, see your kids every day. You can't ask them how their day was. You can't give them a hug, you know. You can't just go home to the people you've been going home to for 6 years.
Yeah.
And it's a struggle. It's something else, and you know, for fathers who want to be there, be involved, and you know.
Well, I want to take this a direction, right? A very, very specific direction, especially Father's Day direction. Do you remember that? Yeah. Right, and it's that thing of like a lot of fathers go through this, and it discuss. Like, I don't have kids myself yet, you know, sadly, but you know, I see a lot of fathers go through it where it's Father's Day and you don't get to see your kids. You know, it's not because of the legal stuff. It, like, there's nothing legal in there. It's because of the sinister attitude, right? The fact that let's leave that one alone. But it happens, and it affects the men's mental health, and a lot of men end up killing themselves over that. They cannot see their kids on Father's Day, you know, and you got through that, bro. You actually got through that, you know. And so I want you to know, I think that took a lot of strength, you know, because you never got to, like, we want to keep that one off, but you didn't get to see your kids that day.
Yeah, you know, having it planned and looking forward to seeing your kids on Father's Day. And I don't care about expensive gifts. It's the little things that those kids spend time on and effort on and love, and making all kinds of different little kids crafts and stuff for their dad for Father's Day. And I didn't get it. I didn't get to really see my kids. I didn't get to enjoy the day where I can celebrate the day I became a father, the day I took that step in my life. And it's hard. I can't really put it into words, but
it's a feeling. That feeling of
It's-
walking around and wanting to scream and shake people. It's that we were just speaking of. That feeling, and you just got to walk around and go to the coffee shop.
it's a pain. I wouldn't wish upon my my greatest enemy, but it's part of men's mental health that I think where you reach out and you have those friends and that support. They give you confidence. They give you everything you need to get through it. And I have to thank a lot of my friends for being there for me when I was at my lowest and supporting me, because without that support of especially other men, it every man has a different experience with things. Every man has a different perspective or point of view, and where my perspective at the time may have been clouded or misjudged, I can have one of my mates, another man, sort of reach out into the same topic, and they can give me a perspective. Will give me the strength to go, hey,
Persevere.
I can get through this.
Yeah.
I have so much more in me, and I can't really describe the feeling that I had that day, but for a father who wants to be a father, and I know a lot of men out there, they don't want to be a father, they don't accept the responsibilities, nor do they want them.
Look at mine.
More than happy to do the deed, but they're not willing to, do what it takes and take the long
And be a
long
real
road.
man.
Yeah.
Something you spoke on as well, right? Speaking to your friends, like you go back into like old Greek philosophy and like long way back in history, and the Stoics, like the men, the men with spears, shields, and swords, they saw it that you had to talk to your friends. It wasn't manly to keep your feelings, it was manly to be with your brothers, because these men battled. Back thousands of years ago, these men were sticking swords side by side. I'm sure that created a lot where they could talk about it. But these days, where we're not, let's face it, we're not sticking swords in people anymore. It's harder for some reason, and it's like you got your brothers around, but it's harder, and it's I don't know, maybe it's that fighting through something together. And I think that's where now it's leading. A lot of mates, you and I, we've lent on each other at times for different support, and that's what I think it's turning into. I mean, you still have to be able to talk to your friends, because that's not manly shit to hold it in, right? That's bullshit. I want to tell you now, that is fucking bullshit.
Yeah, it seemed to be back then, like,
I'd
you
love to
bleed
know
together.
I'd love to know where that dumb idea came from, where some group of men came together and were like, don't talk about your feelings, don't do any of this, it's weak, right? And all of a sudden they've damaged generations and generations and generations of people who don't know how to speak to their mates. Or it takes an absolute fucking ruthless situation for them to actually be able to open up to their mates. It's something that I think needs to be more normalised, and it doesn't need to be looked on as weak. I think it's fucking tough. Right? I think it's fucking tough to get out there and actually want to ask your mate for help. So I'm proud of you.
Thanks, it's definitely a topic that a lot of people don't want to touch on, but that's what I think is wrong. Is because you could have one of the strongest people you've ever met who is going through something that you never even thought could go on, ever in that
Yeah.
person's life or, you know, their situation. But because they've kept it quiet and they've battled those demons alone in the dark, that dark place gets darker.
And darker.
And it's almost like a bottomless pit, because right when you think you hit your rock bottom, well, unfortunately it's just a trap door. It opens up and there's way further to go down. But it's trying to recognise, you know, situations, feelings, emotions as to where you're heading, what's going on. Trying to catch signs before they get to that point where you can reach out to your mates and go, hey,
I'm not doing too good.
I'm not doing alright.
Yeah.
And I've reached out many times to yourself and others going, hey, look, like
I think I'm the one that's reached out the most. I'm hopeless, bro. But yeah, you've definitely reached out. But I think I'm the one that's done it the most.
well, it's not a joke, and it's, you know, it's not something to be ashamed about to reach out, because it's not an easy thing, and unfortunately, a lot of people look at it as it's too hard. No, the hardest part's doing it alone.
It's the fucking hardest part. Like, it makes it damn near fucking. It's literal torture.
But
You know.
like I said, like I was saying earlier, there's perspectives. Different. Everyone has a different perspective on things. You could have 30 men look at an orange, and every man will notice a different thing.
Yeah. A
And
different dimple or a different shade.
There's
or
always a different way to go about things, a different, you know, option. No two people think the same.
Yeah.
And as long as you're willing to, you know, accept it and open up to it, men together go a lot further than men alone.
Women find it real easy to talk to each other, and that's the oddest, you know. How come it's so, like, it's weird that it's just like such a separate thing. It's so, you know, well, I'm glad that we're breaching that barrier with time, you know. It's something that men are starting to face nowadays and starting to actually conquer bit by bit, is actually talking.
Yeah, well, say, for me, I struggled a lot through my younger years as a child, and then it continued on to being, you know, trouble-ish when I was an adult. So for me, I'm teaching my boys it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to communicate. It's okay to, you know, have problems. But trying to solve World War III by yourself,
It's impossible.
it's impossible.
It's impossible. Unless World War III is with yourself.
You look at any president, any prime minister, they've always got an army behind them. They can go to war, but they're sending an army. They don't do it themselves. Why don't they do it themselves? Because they can't. No one man could go onto a field with a gun and take on an entire country and win. It's what it takes when it comes to the children as well. I mean, I'm a single father of 4, and it's, you know, it's a struggle. It can be tough at times, but those kids deserve the world, and that's exactly what I'm trying to give it to them. Now, I'm not, you know, sinless. I've made mistakes, but parenting is like schooling or anything, sporting. You learn as you go. There's no rule book to it. There's no guides. There's no, you know, you can have a natural instinct to it, but you're still going to get things wrong, and that's what happens in life.
Yeah.
When you get things wrong, you know.
It's where you learn.
You're exactly right. And I was always raised by my parents to understand the difference between, you know, mistakes and lessons. And as I got older, I learnt that you don't make mistakes. You only make lessons. And that's a saying that stuck with me my entire life. And something I think a lot of other men should, you know, sit down and say it to themselves 100 times, back to back. You never make mistakes.
You make lessons.
You make lessons.
I like that a lot. I really like that. That helps me in my peace and my heart.
And another thing that men should know, and this is something that I learned through probably the hardest months of my life, which happened to be at the beginning of this year. Just so happened to be that, you know, time spent in pain is not as long as time to mend or rectify.
Yeah.
So as to if you've spent 20 years in suffering and pain, it won't take nearly that long to sort of find yourself and become the person or the version of you that you want to be.
I never thought of it like that. I never
It's-
thought of it like that at all. Man.
Yeah, well, it came to a point of devastation for me, and probably one of my lowest points for me to reach out and seek some help that I really desperately needed, because at that point in time my life was falling apart,
Yeah.
and I needed some wisdom or some advice. You know, reaching out, because I didn't think it was okay to reach out, and then once I hit a certain point in my life, I said, I can't do this on my own. I don't have the tools for it.
Yeah.
You can go to your job all day, every day, but you're not going to get the job done without the specific or the right tools that you need. And as I said, as we touched on before, perspectives. Everyone's got a different perspective.
Yeah.
And for me, I lost a lot of things earlier this year, being my family. I lost my first ever pet, Bruce. He was 18 years old, and he had a hell of a life, but he was my best mate, and I lost him. And as you would remember, I was
You were struggling there,
Yep.
man. Like you. Yeah.
I didn't.
You were telling me about the memories of him growing up, especially I think where he used to help. Like it was either he was waiting for you when you got home, especially when you were going through the stuff with the bullying. He was always waiting for you, wasn't he?
I never knew a relationship like that. Is when I'd come home after some of the hardest days of my childhood, just in despair and in a world of uncertainty, which is where your mind can't process in a world in a world of uncertainty, because you can't make out what's going to happen in 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 weeks, 3 years. You can't. If you don't understand what's happening or why it's happening, you won't understand. You can't process under that. Your mind won't function. That is where you need to look at yourself in your own perspective and say, have I lost perspective? Have I lost my vision of the circumstance and the situation that we are going through at this current point in time?
Yeah.
And I did that, and I'm better off for it, but I didn't understand that as a child. And so I'd come home, and I'd go into my room, I'd sit on my bed, and I'm 8 years old, coming home with busted eye sockets, broken shins, broken fingers, because
Because of the shit at school, bro.
because people thought it was okay, and they'd always tell me walk away or go find a teacher.
Nah, bro, you showed
I
him.
got
You
hell-
fucking fought him off, bro. You fought him off like a fucking bro. That's for me. That's respect, all right? Broken bones coming home from fighting them off, like, bro, that's fucking hard shit.
Yeah, well, I'd come
One
home
moment,
and I'd be
just gonna
busted, bruising.
Just gonna straight your beard, all right?
Go for it.
What was something that helped you get through that? Right? You've lost your best friend, and this best friend doesn't even need to speak to you. This best friend just has to be your friend. Right? What was one of the things that helped you get through that? Because, like, if I lost, I think about it daily if I lose Willow, right? And she's one of my cats. I have 2 cats. And I think about it daily, and it scares the fuck out of me, bro. Like, I'd lose my best friend, you know, and they don't need, she doesn't even need to speak. How did you get through it? Teach me.
Well, one of the main things is that I had you. I
Fuck off.
sat in my room and I
I'm not useful for
was
anything.
no, you were definitely helpful. I sat in my room and I just was in despair. I had this, you know, this feeling of being paralysed. I was numb. I was in so much pain, and I just felt like disaster.
Like, just every breath was a doom, every breath was a death.
Every breath I'd taken felt like it was getting shorter and shorter. And that was my best mate of 18 years. I still remember him as a puppy, and I remember holding him, and the nurses tried holding him, and he would only relax in my arm. Now that's a relationship you can never replace. Is they know what's going, they know that they're not well, they know that, you know, something's going on, and for them to be able to relax in your arms alone, as you know, as the process proceeds, they're comfortable. And it was something I didn't understand for a few days after, but he trusted me, and that's something that, you know, isn't a common thing these days between, you know, anyone. So having a dog be able to like freak out and then just go in your arms and be okay and just instantly feel relief. Saying goodbye to him as they did the procedure, it sucked. I just said goodbye to my best friend, my first friend. It was a tough day, but you know, this having the support around you of your friends, and I mean, I don't have the best relationship with my family. I think that as we got older, between me and the rest of my family, a lot of us, you know, as we said, different perspectives on life, and we don't agree on things, and you know, we went our separate ways. I don't talk to a lot of them, and so having my mates, and you know, I don't have very many of them. Having my mates around, I managed to get through it. I had people telling me, you know, they weren't allowing me to sit down and mope around and, you know, not do anything, not be active, because, you know, as you know me, I'm an active kind of person.
You don't sit down very well.
Yeah, sitting down and dwelling on it is, you know, you got to be able to grieve. You got to be able to grieve, and if I continued grieving the way that I wanted to, then I wouldn't have left. I would have stayed exactly where I was, and I would have ended up being in a much worse state, as I said, with that trap door in the black room. It just keeps on falling when you think you hit rock bottom. So it's not easy, but having your mates who know you well enough to say, hey, like, you can grieve, let's grieve a different way. Let's
yeah, I get you.
The support.
Don't run through it. Don't run away from it. Run through it. Exactly. There's only one way through things, and that's through it. You know.
Yeah.
So it's not pretty. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be graceful. It just has to be done. You know, the one way you get through a fucking we just said it. You know, there's only one way through it. But that brings us to one of our essentially the last topic, right? Because you've progressed through these things.
Yeah.
Right, you've progressed through losing your family, you've progressed through losing your best friend, you're progressing through, you know, losing the home and someone that you loved and trusted in that process, and the hopes and dreams, right? What does that sacrifice mean for you? Because you sacrifice, because no matter what, this is sacrificing for progress. This is moving forward. This is, you know, like, these things are no longer, like, I cannot keep these things in my life. You know, I have to sacrifice and learn to fucking progress on and to get to a new fucking golden door that's made of beautiful opportunities, you know? What have you learned from your sacrifices, Pat, and what has it meant to you? Not what does it mean to you?
Look, I called my sister up one day and I said, you know, I think this is the woman for me. I think this is the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. So I went out of an impulse decision and said, I'm taking it. I'm taking my chance on it. She makes me happy. She supports me, and this is my best friend. So I took it and I got her a ring, an engagement ring. Less than 12 months after, she threw it at my head because of an argument, and she was done with me. To be thrown out the door
So
that
easily,
quickly
callously.
and that easily from someone you've just had, you know, 2 children with, and it's
Bro, that's gut wrenching. You know, like I've never been the best with relationships in my life. I've had one relationship last a year, and it literally lasted a year. Then we broke up that day or the next day, right? And it's like I don't know how I'd go, man. You know, I don't know how I'd go. Having someone do something like that. That's callous. That's very callous.
yeah, it's it wasn't, you know, the best, but with that I could have sat around, I could have moped, I could have, you know,
Could have done a lot of things.
yeah, but at this point I decided to continue. I decided to continue with my job, and I actually got back into playing rugby league, and I found a bigger sense of independence along the lines, but in order for me to find that energy and that motivation to, you know, become more independent, I had to distance myself from friends and family and certain other activities, hobbies, so I could make more time for me. And these are giving up things that it's all I know.
Yeah.
It's all I know.
So let's put that down a tiny bit more. There we go. Just up for a moment. There we go. I have an interesting question.
Yes.
So you've sacrificed a lot, you've gotten all that, right? What have you learnt through? Well, no, not even what have you learnt. What have you gotten through these sacrifices that makes it worth it, right? Because sacrificing usually means you end up gaining. You know, along the line, you end up gaining. What do you think you gained from it? And I want positive. You know, like
I gained a lot of self-respect. I learned more about myself in a sense that, as I was touching on earlier with that living in the world of uncertainty, I didn't understand why things were the way they were or what actions I did that would impact the rest of my life. And, you know, it was it was tough because I took a lot of blows along the way. But in the sense of what did I gain from it, I learnt more about myself so I could be a better person and a better father. So after distancing myself and losing so much, I found what I'd learnt along my trail, along the trail that I'd just taken was that, you know, I'm not the only one. And when you have such a gift, why keep it to yourself? In a sense of, if I can learn to, you know, make it through these times and come out the other side the way I did, then, you know, you can do it. Others can do it. But they're looking for the same help I was looking for. So I'm here to support my friends, because at times my friends are more family to me than my actual family.
I feel that 100%, you know. Same as you, man, like the fuck all family thing, you know, like mum, dad, they're you know, irrelevant and all that, and I've found that a lot of solace is just, you know, like I don't talk to my uncle. Dad's dead, mum's doing her thing, my brother, he's in the Navy, he's the one person I'm close with, but I find that my friends, like I don't talk to my brother about a lot of this stuff, you know. Hey, a lot of my, you knew about this way before him, you know, than my brother, because I'm not telling him that stuff. You know, it's like weird. I prefer to open up to my friends, and like you guys are more like fucking who's been through the trenches with me.
Well, I find that my brothers, specific brothers of mine, they will, if I was to tell them that I was doing what you're, you know, doing right now, I was going to take something on similar to myself, they would tell me something along the lines of, why would you do that? You suck at it. You'll fail at it. And going back to the family thing, that's why I've distanced myself so much from a lot of my family, is because I want to have this sense about myself that I can make it through anything. I can achieve anything I want, and I don't need that negativity. I don't need that perspective. Everyone's got a different perspective, and I respect everyone's perspective, but I cannot allow that kind of negativity, because that is what will put me in a bigger state of depression. And it's not fair. It's not fair at all. So I have taken probably longer than what it should have to reach out, but if I had to give any sort of advice to people these days, it's that do it, reach out, connect with the people that you trust and that you love, because in the end, if you don't have love or trust,
it's nothing more. Yeah, you don't have much.
You don't have nearly anything, and you'll be alone. Not in a sense of alone physically, but
inside as well.
Inside, you will feel like you have nothing. And I've felt that pain before, and I never will again. I refuse to have myself in that situation. So my message to anybody who is watching this is, if you're going through a hard time, or if you're in a spot where you don't feel like you can make it through, reach out.
Reach out, guys.
Because if you don't reach out, you'll not only lose...
Man, we'd both be dead if we'd never reached out to each other and shit, you know? Like, there's that possibility. It's not a definite, but it's that possibility that we could be dead. And that's just a fucking hard fact.
It's a hard truth, and it's a hard pill to swallow, but if you are going through a hard time and you see no other light, you see no other way out, I promise you, I've been there, I've done that, I've been on the hard wire. Reach out, because whether you can see it or not, there's always something better.
And you can never see it, can you? Because you're always, it's not like we can see the future.
No.
Right? The amount of times I've just had to fucking just put blind faith that it's like, I just feel like fucking, you know, like giving up on everything, you know, like killing myself or any of that. And I'm sorry to mention it, but it's like, then you reach out, right? And it just becomes less powerful. Just from that simple thing. Just from that one simple thing. Because there's plenty of times where I've wanted to give up. But you know what? We're here today, brother. We're here today. And we just done our first successful interview. Thank you.
Yeah, bro.
Sure, bro.
That song